Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 26th edition of Storms of Furey. Yes, we like to talk about things that have happened in the past. We like to, share some thoughts. Almost spilled that on what is perhaps coming down the road. Obviously, we have a lot of fun, us meteorologists, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I love going out and talking to the kids at all the schools around Connecticut and getting feedback as to, how do we do? Every time I ask the question, what do? I do television, I do meteorology, I do weather. Every time I tell you the weather, it's always right, never wrong, and boy, do they come back with no really fast. So obviously, I hope have gotten better over the years forecasting the weather, but the challenges are amazing. And, we look at so many different things, and one of the things that is our big engine is way up high. How far away is it? The sun. Does anybody know the answer to that? It was the $1 million question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. How far away is the sun from the earth? And, guess what? They got it wrong. Yeah, the sun is 93 million miles away. You got to think about that for a minute. So there's a whole lot that goes on up there, and there's a whole lot of changes that happen, and it has an effect here on Earth a number of ways. And so the solar activity is something that we monitor very closely. Now, obviously, there's the scientists that get together and try and figure out what's going to happen on the sun. Think about that. We're trying to figure out what's happening here on Earth. They're trying to figure out what's going on in the sun. And, NASA study suggested that the solar activity is going to remain high and is going to rise even further in the coming decades, contradicting the assumptions that the sun was quieting down. And so now all of a sudden we're going into this, thought process that the sun's waking up. And it was a brief period of relative inactivity. And now all of a sudden the sun decides it is going to, continue to throw out these huge coronal mass ejections. The sun, by the way, it follows an 11-year cycle known as a solar minimum. So we build towards the explosive peaks, the solar maximums. The big star up there spits out these powerful storms. And, when we get into one of these sunspot cycles, darker patches on the sun, and we have, got an example of that for you. You can see, when you get patches like that, but then you get a whole bunch of them, and then in some cases, you'll get one of these storms on the sun, the surface of the sun, that's 15 times the size of Earth. Think about that, 15 times the size of Earth. So we have sunspot cycles that go in 11 years. We also have sunspot cycles known as the Hale cycle that goes every 22 years. The entire magnetic field of the sun flips and then reverses back again. Some other long-term fluctuations have happened in the past, back in the Little Ice Age when we had what was called the Maunder minimum. That was about 1645 to 1715, and then 1790 to 1830, the Dalton minimum. So there was nothing going on in the sun. Back in the early 2000s, we had solar activity that made some scientists believe we were going into a deeper solar minimum. So now here we are thinking that everything's going to be calming down. And then all of a sudden, we got, up until just a few years ago, and the sun started to go really crazy. And, when you're starting to see these enormous aurora borealis down here where we are, do you remember May of last year? The idea that we're supposed to be at the end of our solar cycle which was most extreme in 2024, but we're continuing to see the extremes that are going on right now. This current sunspot cycle began way back in 2019, and it seems like each and every year it continues to ramp up even more. We had back in 2024 the kind of views that you see in Norway and Iceland and so forth right here in Connecticut, and hopefully you got a chance to see that. The idea of the sun is going to be more active as we go along. We have had the highest number of sunspots in more than 20 years. We have record number of powerful X-class flares that have been happening. And so when these big solar storms come through, they cause tremendous amounts of problems to communications, to airlines. We had the situation last May, one of the most vibrant auroras in centuries across North America, all the way down to the Caribbean, $500 million worth of damage. That's something that, doesn't get talked about a lot. Airlines, planes being affected. So there's so many different things that go on here. This whole situation right now is of tremendous interest. There is effect on the weather. We have seen at times when there's tremendous solar activity. You go back 2010, 11, 12, 13. We talk about that time with the hurricanes and the big snowstorms and so forth. So we're watching to see, what's going to happen, what the influence is. There's influence on earthquakes. When we have these solar storms, we have much, much more frequent and bigger earthquakes around the globe. So the sun is going nuts, and, the earth down here is reacting, and it's going to be very interesting to see down the road how this all comes together as we move along. Plan on some big extremes in the weather department here on Earth from these storms that come on down. Well, the ones that went back with the Carrington storm back in 1859, it took one of those solar flares only 17.6 days to get here. It's amazing how fast things travel. So keeping track of everything it's exciting. It's tough. We don't fully know what happens down here on Earth in terms of weather, and trying to figure out what's going on 93 million miles away is very hard to do too. So stay tuned as we're going to continue to monitor the craziness of, the sun and the earth. All right, we'll be back to talk about a big ice storm right after this. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right. After getting a little thought on the sun and what is happening there and what continues to happen, and just the very intriguing and fascinating things that occur in the world of weather, there are, certain weather events that, live in history. We've talked about it here on Storms of Furey, the big ice storm of December 1973 here in Connecticut. Now, when we talk about an ice storm, what exactly do we mean? Well, we talk about liquid rain that's falling from the sky. Yes, you get warm air that overrides a big dome of dense cold air that's near the surface. We had it happen with a storm in early December here in Connecticut where, the warm air came in aloft. That storm should have been snow for the entire state. It was just for the northwest corner, basically. And the eastern and southern Connecticut just rained, but it ended up being ice in some spots on the trees and didn't cause nearly the problems that this one did back in 1998. It's the, Great American Ice Storm of 1998, a storm that I remember very, very vividly. It was in an El Nino year, and we also, had, a setup here that, could have been a big blizzard, but it was a storm that formed around the 4th of January, 1998, and moved on up. It caused in parts of Maine, northern New England, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and especially into eastern Canada, as much as 5 inches of radial ice. I was working with Northeast Utilities back at the time, and Northeast Utilities here in Connecticut sent crews up into eastern Canada. And I remember Jim LaChance, who was in charge at the time, talking about the most surreal situation you could ever imagine, where these entire huge towers. You know how you look off into the woods sometimes, you see these big towers with the power lines going along them, and these towers just totally ripped down because of the ice. So this 1998 storm was a result of subtropical jet flow, El Nino enhanced in a huge way. This was a year that was extremely tough out in California with the storms that kept coming in, and these storms rolling across. And, well, one of these storms ran into an Arctic high, and, well, this epic ice storm happened. Areas, eastern Ontario, southern Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, northern New York, central Maine, massive damage to trees and the whole entire electrical infrastructure. The long-term power outages. Millions were left in the dark for periods ranging from, well, just days to several weeks, and in some instances, months without power. That's how bad it was. There were 34 fatalities, shutdown of activities in large cities like Montreal and Ottawa, an unprecedented effort for reconstructing the grid. And so it was the largest deployment of Canadian military since the Korean War. It's about 16,000 military, to be exact. The idea that help came in from all over the country and more was the case, and we here in Connecticut sent our folks from Northeast Utilities on up. This one was very interesting in how it was all set up. Upper flow turned in from the east, the big high up to the north, the series of low-pressure systems passing along, and for more than 80 hours, steady freezing rain and or drizzle was occurring. And so that's how the ice was able to build up to 5 inches thick on structures. That's kind of hard to comprehend, but that is what happened. And, that is the reason for the very prolonged time to get people back on. There were over 1,000 transmission lines that collapsed in chain reactions under the weight of the ice. There were more than 4 million people knocked out of power, most of them in southern Quebec, western New Brunswick, eastern Ontario, and in many cases for those areas there, an entire month without power. And there were 25 people that were documented as dying in their homes from hypothermia because there was no heat. Now, there's probably many more deaths that occurred, but that was the ones that they know of. So bridges, tunnels were closed, connecting places like the South Shore to Montreal, worrying about the collapsing due to the immense weight of the ice. It's just fascinating to read, what the effect of this was. The effect to agriculture and to animals and so forth. It's very sad when you look at everything that was affected by this. The 5,000 trees in the Montreal's Mount Royal Park basically wiped out. It's just absolutely mind-boggling what happened with this. So estimates of material damage cost $2 billion in just Quebec, Canada alone. And overall estimates are for around $4 to $6 billion for all the areas in the United States that were affected by this. So, yes, the January 1998 ice storm is probably a 1 in a 1,000-year event. It's one that, again, some of our folks in Connecticut here went up and helped rebuild, which was not just weeks but months. And that was in an El Nino year when you combine the subtropical warm jet with the very cold air. Can you imagine 80 hours of freezing rain and 5 inches of ice caked on everything? Yes, that's a horrific, scary, and horrendous scene. And, well, who knows, again, whether we'll see something like that down the road. But most certainly, ice storms are something that we hope we never see again, but we will. All right, let's go to snow in Florida next. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right, our segment 3 here is going to talk about a big snowstorm in Florida. Now, again, this is one of these events that happened recently, but maybe you don't remember it. Yeah, when you talk about, back in the late 1970s, all the talk was the Ice Age is coming back. Yeah, we were into these crazy winters here in the Northeast. Back in 1978, January, snow flakes reached all the way down into the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. Even some flakes were reported in the Bahamas. Snow on the ground. One of our meteorologists, I remember talking about traveling down 95 all the way down to the Florida-Georgia line. Is that our producer, our wonderful producer, Juliana, Florida-Georgia line? Would that be the name of a band?
That is the name of a band.
It is?
It is the name of a band.
See? Hey, I'm hip. I know what's going on. All right, so, yeah, Florida-Georgia line. There was snow on the ground back in the late 70s. And all the Ice Age is coming, and you know how well that goes. And, and keep in mind, we had a little Ice Age going back there into the 17, 18, early 1800s. So as I always talk about the idea that, how long has the Earth been around and how much have we gone up and down in terms of the temperature because of things that happen like on the sun or the volcanic eruptions that go on around the globe that cause, the sulfur compounds in the atmosphere to minimize the solar radiation. There's just so many things that happen. And so when you look at these things that go on, there can be 100,000 years where things are dramatically changing. We're here for just a short little period of time. And so that short period of time that we're here, we think that we're, ruling the earth, and whatever we do is the reason why the climate's doing what it does. And well, guess what? That's not the case. Now, yes, we have to be kind to our planet, and we got to do the right thing. There's no doubt about that. Not all countries do the right thing in terms of pollution and so forth. But in terms of, are we guiding this planet, and are we the ones that are making the climate change and so forth? And again, climate change is over tens of thousands of years. It's not something that's in the short term. So when you go back to late 1970s, and then the thought was the Ice Age was coming, there's people who got on that bandwagon back then, and they're the same ones that are on the bandwagon right now that we're warming climate. Yeah, we are warming climate. We're warming since the mid-1800s. We've been warming up. But at the same time, we get these extreme, out-of-the-ordinary weather events that go on that change things. And, one of those was just this past January, 2025. Florida, an historic, rare Gulf Coast blizzard. Yes, this storm brought record cold and record snow to places like Pensacola, Florida, 8 to 10 inches of snow, shattering long-standing records, causing widespread disruption. Interstate 10 closed, flight cancellations, a once-in-a-lifetime event for the region. And that was January of 2025. Do you remember that? The Gulf Coast. So it is the panhandle of Florida, which, can have tremendous differential in weather. Panhandle of Florida, folks are used to having fire on in the fireplace. You can be in the 50s for highs in the panhandle. You can see, what was showing right there in terms of the winter storm warnings. That was a winter storm warning, by the way, that red area that goes from down near Brownsville, Texas, to New Orleans, Louisiana, to Apalachicola, Florida. I love that Apalachicola. I love that. I love that name. And taking it right over into South Georgia. The storm. Matter of fact, there was more snow on the ground in January 2025 in Pensacola, Florida, than there was in New Haven, Connecticut. So, yeah. Can you imagine if you planned your vacation? It's just like anybody that has planned their vacation for late October because you're out of the hurricane season down south, and the next thing you know, the hurricane shows up, like a Sandy or a Melissa. The history of weather shows us that these extreme events can occur in any time frame that you might think, well, we're warming and we don't have winters anymore. As I've stated before, was it 2009 where, Washington, D.C. doesn't get snow anymore. They put a big article out, and the next thing you know, they had 2 feet of snow come in. So we are looking at a atmosphere that is, enhanced with water vapor, the oceans that are warmer. Although the Arctic, can be said that there's more ice there now than there has been in the last 20, 30 years. We take a look at all the things that are going around all around the world. We take a look at all the indices that are happening from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific to the Atlantic and everywhere else. And it's it's very interesting to see how things transpire. Again, I go back to the Hunga Tonga volcano in 2022 down there in the South Pacific, volcano that erupted in the ocean. And what happened with that is just absolutely astonishing. What it did around the globe and how it changed things. Just like Mount Pinatubo back in the early 90s that made the globe colder because so much sulfur compounds were spewed from that. So Mother Nature has a way of saying, hey, I'm in control. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. And, we're here to try and tell you what's going to happen next. But, as we say a lot, we have a hard time getting the next day right, let alone trying to get right what's going to happen down the road. We'll try to give you an idea of what the roads are going to be like. It is fascinating to see how a small little state like Connecticut can have such different weather conditions. Yeah, we saw it already in early December. One part of one town covered in ice. Another part of the town is just wet. Another part of town has snow all over the place. So, yeah, here we are. We're in the winter of 2025, 2026. So far, it's cold and no signs of it changing here in Connecticut. Yes, continue to have the heavy winter attire on, and sooner or later, the big snowstorm will come, and we'll be here for you. Storm Team 8, WTNH, News 8, Storms of Furey. We'll continue on. Be safe. Stay healthy. Bye.